Atomic Habits by James Clear has rapidly become one of the most influential books on personal development and productivity. Its popularity stems from the fact that Clear approaches the topic of habits not as a vague, motivational pep talk, but through a structured scientific method. In this book, Clear emphasizes that habits are the fundamental building blocks of behavior, and by understanding how they work, anyone can make profound changes to their lives. The concept of an atomic habit is simple yet powerful. Clear defines atomic habits as small, seemingly insignificant behaviors that, when performed regularly, can lead to massive personal growth over time. This notion challenges the traditional belief that significant change requires monumental effort. Instead, Clear proposes that real change comes from the aggregation of small, consistent actions. Just as atoms form the building blocks of everything in the physical world, atomic habits form the building blocks of our behaviors and ultimately our identities. The book centers on the idea that lasting transformation is achieved through a focus on systems rather than goals. Many self-help books place emphasis on goal setting, but Clear makes the case that it's our daily systems, our habits, that determine whether we succeed. For example, if your goal is to lose weight, that's just an outcome. It's your habits, eating healthier, exercising regularly, that lead you to that outcome. By improving your systems, you can achieve long-lasting success in virtually any area of life, from health to career to relationships. Throughout Atomic Habits, Clear integrates insights from psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics, making the book not only accessible but also deeply informative. He provides practical techniques that anyone can use to build good habits, break bad ones, and reshape their environment to make lasting change easier. In this summary, we'll explore these key concepts, diving into the details of how Clear's approach to habit formation and behavior change can transform our lives. Before we move on, if you're looking for more book summaries, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new summaries. Now, let's continue. One of the core tenets of Atomic Habits is the idea that small habits, when practiced consistently, can lead to dramatic results over time. Clear calls this the compound effect, which is the principle that small, seemingly inconsequential actions, when repeated consistently over time, compound to produce significant outcomes. This concept is well illustrated by the analogy of compound interest in finance. Just as small investments grow exponentially over time, small habits have a compounding effect that magnifies over months and years. To understand the power of small habits, Clear introduces the idea of 1% better every day. The idea is simple. If you can improve by just 1% every day, that improvement compounds, leading to a massive gain over time. This principle works in reverse as well. If you get 1% worse every day, small declines can add up, leading to negative consequences down the road. This is why it's so crucial to recognize the importance of tiny habits. While a 1% change may seem negligible in the short term, over the long term, it can be the difference between success and failure. Small habits are particularly powerful because they are easy to start. The lower the barrier to entry, the more likely we are to stick with the behavior. Clear emphasizes that the biggest barrier to change is often getting started. Big, sweeping changes can feel overwhelming, which is why many people struggle to maintain them. On the other hand, small habits are manageable and don't require a lot of motivation or willpower to initiate. By focusing on small changes, you're more likely to build momentum and create lasting habits. Moreover, small habits are sustainable. Massive lifestyle overhauls may lead to quick results, but they often come at the cost of burnout or loss of motivation. Small habits, however, are easy to maintain over the long term because they require less effort. Over time, these small habits compound into major improvements, but because the changes are gradual, they're more likely to stick. In essence, the power of small habits lies in their sustainability and cumulative effect. Clear also uses real-world examples to demonstrate the power of small habits. For instance, he talks about the British cycling team, which went from being mediocre to dominating the sport by focusing on marginal gains, making small 1% improvements in every area of their training. These tiny changes added up, leading to a dramatic improvement in performance over time. This principle applies to any area of life. Whether you're trying to become healthier, more productive, or more skilled, the key is to focus on making small, consistent improvements. At the heart of Atomic Habits is the framework that James Clear calls the 4 laws of behavior change. These 4 principles serve as a practical guide for building good habits and breaking bad ones. Clear emphasizes that habits are not solely a matter of willpower. They are the result of a series of cues, behaviors, and rewards. By understanding and manipulating these elements, anyone can change their habits effectively. The first law, make it obvious. This law focuses on the importance of cues in habit formation. Habits are triggered by cues in your environment, which act as reminders or signals to initiate a behavior. If you want to build a good habit, you need to make the cues for that habit obvious and clear. For example, if you want to start running every morning, leaving your running shoes by the door is an obvious cue that reminds you to go for a run. The easier it is to notice the cue, the more likely you are to act on it. On the flip side, if you want to break a bad habit, the key is to make the cues for that habit invisible. If you're trying to quit eating junk food, hide or remove it from your environment so you're not tempted. The second law, make it attractive. The second law deals with motivation. The more attractive a behavior is, the more likely you are to do it. Clear suggests linking a new habit to something you already find enjoyable, which is a concept known as temptation bundling. For example, if you enjoy listening to podcasts but struggle to work out, you can bundle the two by allowing yourself to listen to podcasts only when you're exercising. By pairing a desired action with an activity you already enjoy, you increase the likelihood of sticking to the new habit. Conversely, to break a bad habit, you need to make the behavior unattractive. One way to do this is to associate the bad habit with negative emotions or outcomes. The third law, make it easy. This law focuses on reducing the friction between you and the habit. The more effort required to perform a behavior, the less likely you are to do it. To build good habits, you need to make the desired behavior as easy as possible. Clear suggests starting with what he calls the 2-minute rule, which involves making your new habit so simple that it takes less than 2 minutes to complete. For instance, if you want to develop a reading habit, start by reading 1 page a day. Once the habit is established, you can build on it over time. To break a bad habit, do the opposite. Make the behavior difficult. If you're trying to stop watching TV, you could unplug the TV or remove the remote control batteries, adding friction to the behavior. The fourth law, make it satisfying. This law deals with the reward aspect of habits. Positive reinforcement makes habits more satisfying and increases the likelihood of repeating the behavior. Clear suggests using immediate rewards to reinforce good habits. For example, if you're saving money, you might treat yourself to a small reward after reaching a savings goal. On the other hand, to break a bad habit, you need to make the outcome unsatisfying. You can create a sense of immediate consequence by involving others, sharing your goals with a friend, or using a habit contract where you face penalties if you don't follow through on your commitments. Together, the 4 laws of behavior change provide a powerful framework for habit formation. By making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, you're creating an environment in which good habits can thrive, and bad habits are less likely to persist. Central to the mechanics of habit formation is the concept of the habit loop, which consists of a cue, routine, and reward. James Clear expands on this concept by adding a 4th component, craving. The habit loop explains how habits are formed and why they persist over time. Understanding this loop is crucial for anyone looking to create new habits or break old ones. The habit loop begins with the cue, the trigger that initiates the habit. A cue can be anything from a time of day to a specific location, emotion, or preceding action. For example, walking into your kitchen might be the cue that prompts you to open the fridge and look for a snack. Cues are the first step in the habit loop, and they set the behavior in motion. This is why it's so important to identify the cues that trigger both your good and bad habits. Next comes the craving, which is the motivational force behind every habit. Cravings are what drive you to act in response to the cue. Without a craving, there's no reason to act. Cravings can be emotional, seeking comfort or excitement, or physiological, like hunger or thirst. For instance, after seeing a cue like your phone lighting up with a notification, the The craving might be the desire to check for a message. Understanding your cravings can help you control your habits, as you can learn to redirect them toward healthier behaviors. The third component is the response, which is the actual behavior or action you take. This could be something positive, like going for a run, or negative, like scrolling through social media. The response is the part of the habit loop that people are most familiar with, as it's the behavior they wish to change or reinforce. Finally, the reward is what completes the habit loop. Rewards are the positive outcomes that reinforce the habit, making it more likely that you will repeat the behavior in the future. For instance, if you get a dopamine hit from checking your phone, that reward makes it more likely that you'll check your phone again the next time you see a notification. Rewards satisfy your craving and close the loop. Clear highlights the importance of each part of the habit loop in creating or breaking habits. If you want to build a new habit, you need to manipulate the cue, craving, response, and reward in a way that supports your desired behavior. For instance, if you want to start exercising, you could create a cue, lay out your gym clothes, build a craving, visualize how good you'll feel after a workout. Make the response easy, start with a simple 10-minute routine, and reward yourself afterward, enjoy a healthy smoothie. On the other hand, to break a bad habit, you need to disrupt one or more parts of the habit loop. You can remove the cue, reduce the craving, make the response difficult, or eliminate the reward. For example, if you want to stop snacking at night, you could remove the cue, keep snacks out of sight, reduce the craving, find a healthier replacement, make the response difficult, keep only healthy food at home, and eliminate the reward, focus on how much better you'll feel in the morning. This expanded understanding of the habit loop, with the inclusion of craving, provides a more comprehensive view of why habits stick and how they can be altered. By consciously manipulating these four elements, you can take control of your habits and create lasting change. One of the most profound insights in Atomic Habits is Clear's concept of identity-based habits. Clear argues that the key to lasting change is not just about changing your actions or outcomes, but about changing your identity. This approach differs from traditional methods of behavior change, which often focus on goals or outcomes. Instead, identity-based habits focus on who you want to become rather than what you want to achieve. Most people approach change by focusing on the outcome. They set goals like losing weight, writing a book, or getting a promotion. While these goals can provide motivation, they are not sustainable unless they are backed by a change in identity. Clear explains that instead of saying, "I want to lose weight," you should focus on becoming a healthy person. The goal is not the outcome. The goal is to become someone who consistently makes healthy choices. When your actions are aligned with your identity, the habits needed to support those actions become much easier to sustain. Clear explains that there are 3 levels of behavior change: outcomes, processes, and identity. Outcomes are the results you want to achieve, processes are the habits or actions you take, and identity is what you believe about yourself. Most people focus on the outcome first, then the process, and finally, the identity. However, Clear advocates for flipping this model. Start with your identity, and let that identity shape your processes, which will then lead to the outcomes you desire. For example, if your goal is to run a marathon, instead of focusing on the outcome of running the marathon, focus on becoming a runner. When you identify as a runner, the process of running regularly becomes a natural part of who you are, and the outcome of completing a marathon becomes a byproduct of that identity. The same principle applies to any area of life. If you want to write a book, instead of focusing on the goal of finishing the book, focus on becoming a writer. When you see yourself as a writer, writing every day becomes a natural habit. Identity-based habits are powerful because they are tied to your sense of self. When a habit is aligned with your identity, it becomes a part of who you are, rather than just something you do. This makes it easier to stick with the habit over the long term because you're not just pursuing a goal, you're embodying a new version of yourself. Conversely, when a habit conflicts with your identity, it becomes much harder to maintain. One of the most effective ways to build identity-based habits is through what Clear calls small wins. These are small, incremental achievements that reinforce your desired identity. For example, if you want to become a reader, start by reading just 1 page a day. Each time you complete that small action, you reinforce the belief that you are a reader. Over time, these small wins accumulate and solidify your new identity. Clear also emphasizes the importance of using language that reflects your new identity. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to quit smoking," say, "I'm not a smoker." By using language that affirms your new identity, you're more likely to align your actions with that identity. This subtle shift in language can have a powerful impact on your behavior. In Atomic Habits, James Clear makes it clear that your environment plays a crucial role in shaping your habits. While motivation and willpower are important, they are often not enough to sustain lasting behavior change. The environment in which you live and work has a significant impact on your actions, whether you realize it or not. By designing your environment to support your desired habits, you can make it easier to stick to good habits and harder to fall into bad ones. One of the key ideas in this section is the concept of environment design. Clear argues that instead of relying on willpower to make good choices, you should structure your environment in a way that makes those choices easier. This means altering your physical surroundings to create cues for good habits and remove cues for bad habits. For example, if you want to eat healthier, you could place fruits and vegetables in a visible and accessible location while keeping junk food out of sight or out of reach. By making the desired behavior more convenient and the undesired behavior more difficult, you increase the likelihood of sticking to your habits. Clear also introduces the concept of friction, which refers to the amount of effort required to perform a behavior. The more friction there is, the less likely you are to do something. To build good habits, you should reduce friction by making the behavior as easy as possible. For example, if you want to go to the gym in the morning, you could lay out your workout clothes the night before, making it easy to get dressed and head out the door. On the other hand, to break a bad habit, you should increase friction by making the behavior more difficult. For instance, if you're trying to reduce your screen time, you could put your phone in another room while you work, adding a layer of difficulty to accessing it. In addition to physical environment design, Clear emphasizes the importance of social environment. The people you surround yourself with have a powerful influence on your habits. Humans are social creatures, and we tend to adopt the behaviors and beliefs of the people around us. If you surround yourself with people who have the habits you want to cultivate, you're more likely to adopt those habits. For example, if you want to get fit, joining a group of friends who regularly exercise can help reinforce your new habits. On the other hand, if you're surrounded by people who engage in negative behaviors, such as smoking or overeating, it becomes much harder to break those habits. Clear also touches on the concept of social norms and how they influence our behavior. We are wired to conform to the expectations of the group, and this can work for or against us depending on the habits we're trying to build. If the people around you prioritize health and fitness, you're more likely to adopt those habits as well. Conversely, if your social group values unhealthy behaviors, it becomes much harder to break away from those habits. Breaking bad habits is one of the most challenging aspects of behavior change, but James Clear offers a clear and practical framework for doing so. In Atomic Habits, he introduces the concept of inverting the 4 laws of behavior change to break bad habits. This means taking the principles used to build good habits and flipping them to make bad habits less attractive, more difficult, and less rewarding. The first step to breaking a bad habit is to make it invisible. Just as you can make good habits more obvious by placing cues in your environment, you can make bad habits less likely by removing the cues that trigger them. For example, if you're trying to reduce your social media usage, you could delete social media apps from your phone, making it harder to access them. The key is to reduce the visibility of the cue, so you're not as tempted to engage in the behavior. By removing the cue, you're less likely to initiate the habit loop that leads to the unwanted behavior. The second strategy is to make it unattractive. This involves changing your perception of the bad habit so that it no longer seems appealing. One way to do this is to focus on the negative consequences of the habit. For example, if you're trying to quit smoking, you might remind yourself of the long-term health risks associated with smoking, such as lung cancer or heart disease. By reframing the habit as something harmful or undesirable, you reduce your craving for it. Another way to make a habit unattractive is to associate it with a negative identity. For instance, instead of saying, "I'm trying to quit smoking," you could say, "I'm not a smoker." This shift in identity makes the habit less attractive because it no longer aligns with how you see yourself. The third principle for breaking a bad habit is to make it difficult. The easier it is to engage in a bad habit, the more likely you are to do it. To break a habit, you need to increase the friction involved in performing the behavior. For example, if you're trying to stop watching TV late at night, you could unplug the TV or hide the remote in another room. By making the action more difficult, you're adding obstacles between you and the habit, which decreases the likelihood of following through. This principle works for nearly any bad habit. Whether it's eating junk food, procrastinating, or spending too much time on your phone. The fourth and final step is to make it unsatisfying. Bad habits persist because they provide some kind of reward, whether it's a hit of dopamine from scrolling social media or the temporary pleasure of eating sugary snacks. To break the habit, you need to remove the reward or create immediate negative consequences for engaging in the behavior. One way to do this is through accountability. Share your goal with someone else or make a public commitment, so that if you slip up, you face social consequences. For example, if you're trying to stop biting your nails, you could tell a friend or family member to call you out whenever they see you doing it. Alternatively, you can create a habit contract where you impose penalties on yourself if you fail to meet your goals. Clear also emphasizes the importance of self-compassion when breaking bad habits. Often people become discouraged when they fail to break a habit right away, leading to guilt and giving up. Clear suggests that it's more productive to focus on making incremental progress rather than expecting perfection. Setbacks are a normal part of the process, but as long as you're consistently working to make the habit more difficult and less rewarding, you're moving in the right direction. A key aspect of habit formation that James Clear emphasizes in Atomic Habits is the importance of tracking progress and incorporating accountability into your routine. These two elements provide both motivation and structure, making it easier to build new habits and maintain them over the long term. Habit tracking is a simple yet powerful tool. Clear explains that when you track your habits, you're creating a visual reminder of your progress, which can be incredibly motivating. Whether you're marking an X on a calendar each time you complete a habit, or using a habit tracking app, seeing a streak of consistent behavior helps reinforce the habit. The act of tracking itself becomes a cue that prompts you to continue the behavior. Additionally, the visual cue of a streak can trigger the desire to keep the streak going, making you less likely to skip the habit. Habit tracking also provides a sense of immediate reward. While many habits take time to show significant results, tracking gives you instant feedback, showing that you're making progress even when the outcomes aren't immediately visible. This is particularly important for habits with delayed rewards such as exercising, where the physical changes may take weeks or months to appear. By tracking the habit daily, you're reinforcing the behavior with a sense of accomplishment each time you mark a day complete. Clear also highlights the importance of avoiding the all-or-nothing mindset when it comes to habit tracking. It's inevitable that you'll miss a day or fall off track at some point, but the key is to avoid missing 2 days in a row. Missing one day is a small setback, but missing two can quickly become a pattern. By focusing on consistency over perfection, you're more likely to stay committed to your goals in the long run. In addition to tracking, accountability plays a crucial role in habit formation. Clear explains that when you make a commitment to someone else, you're more likely to follow through on your habits. This is because humans are social creatures, and we tend to care about how others perceive us. By sharing your goals with a friend, family member, or coach, you're creating a sense of external accountability, which can motivate you to stick with your habits even when your internal motivation wavers. There are several ways to incorporate accountability into your habit-building process. One option is to find an accountability partner, someone who is also working on building a habit or achieving a goal. You can check in with each other regularly, offering support and encouragement. Alternatively, you can create a formal habit contract where you outline the habits you want to build or break and establish consequences for failing to follow through. This could involve financial penalties, social consequences, or rewards for staying on track. The key is to create a system of accountability that works for you and provides enough motivation to keep you moving forward. Another method of accountability is to share your progress publicly. This could be as simple as posting your daily progress on social media or joining a group where members support each other in their habit-building efforts. The knowledge that others are watching your progress can provide an additional layer of motivation, as most people want to be seen as reliable and consistent. Tracking and accountability not only help you stay on course, but also create a feedback loop that reinforces your habits. When you see consistent progress and receive support from others, it strengthens your belief that you are capable of change. This belief, in turn, makes it easier to stick with your habits, creating a cycle of positive reinforcement. One of the key lessons in Atomic Habits is that success in building habits is not about making short-term changes, but about adopting a long-term perspective. James Clear emphasizes the importance of continuous improvement and the idea that habits are not a one-time fix, but a lifelong process. The goal is not to achieve perfection, but to focus on gradual, consistent improvement over time. Clear introduces the concept of plateaus of latent potential, which refers to the idea that progress often happens slowly and subtly at first, before eventually leading to visible results. Many people give up on their habits too soon because they don't see immediate results, but Clear reminds us that most significant changes happen beneath the surface before they become apparent. This is why it's essential to adopt a long-term mindset when working on habits. The key is to trust the process and remain patient, knowing that the compounding effect of small improvements will eventually lead to meaningful change. Continuous improvement is a central theme in Atomic Habits. James Clear encourages to focus on getting just 1% better every day, rather than trying to make drastic changes all at once. This idea is rooted in the Japanese concept of Kaizen, which means continuous improvement. By aiming for small incremental gains, you're more likely to sustain your efforts over the long term and avoid burnout. The concept of marginal gains can be applied to any area of life, from personal development to professional growth. For example, if you're trying to improve your health, focus on making small changes to your diet and exercise routine that you can sustain over time. Rather than going on an extreme diet or working out for hours a day, start with small adjustments that are manageable, such as drinking more water or walking for 10 minutes each day. Over time, these small habits will accumulate and lead to significant improvements in your overall health. Similarly, in a professional context, continuous improvement can be applied to skills development. Instead of trying to master a new skill overnight, focus on learning something new every day, even if it's just a small piece of information or a new technique. By consistently improving, you'll eventually become proficient in the skill, even though the progress may not be immediately noticeable. Clear also emphasizes the importance of reflection and review as part of the continuous improvement process. He suggests regularly evaluating your habits and progress to identify areas where you can make adjustments. This could involve setting aside time each week or month to review your goals and assess whether your current habits are aligned with those goals. If necessary, you can tweak your habits to ensure that you're continuing to move in the right direction. The process of continuous improvement also requires a willingness to adapt and evolve. As you grow and your circumstances change, your habits may need to change as well. Clear encourages readers to remain flexible and open to adjusting their habits as needed. For example, a habit that worked well for you in the past may no longer be effective as your priorities shift. By regularly reviewing your habits and being open to change, you ensure that your habits continue to serve your long-term goals. Atomic Habits offers a blueprint for anyone looking to change their life through the power of habits. Whether you're trying to build new, positive habits or break free from destructive ones, the insights and strategies presented in the book provide a clear path forward. James Clear's approach is both practical and grounded in science, making it accessible to anyone willing to put in the effort to create lasting change. By focusing on systems rather than goals, embracing small but consistent improvements, and shaping your environment to support your success, you can harness the power of Atomic Habits to transform your life for the better. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more bookish content. I'd love to hear your take on this book. Drop your comments below. Did it live up to the hype?